Good evening, folks. This is Brian Lawrence with IndianPeaksWeather.net up here at 8,200 feet in Nederland, Colorado, high up in the Front Range foothills. Currently at our house here in Nederland, Colorado, we are looking at a temperature of 42 degrees. It's a balmy evening for early April here in the foothills of the Rockies. Dew point right now, 22 degrees, relative west-northwest at 3 miles per hour. Take a look at today's summary. Go back over to the weather station here. It's been a warm couple days. We did have a quick shot of cooler temperatures yesterday afternoon and last night when we saw temperatures get back down into the lower 20s. But overall, it's been very, very nice here in Nederland, Colorado over the past few days. We still have some snow on the ground. It's a little bit more spotty now, but overall, on average, we have about 4.5 inches of snow on the ground. And a lot of that is from the snowstorm we had a couple of weeks ago, almost 3 weeks ago, on March 23rd. And that was a very wet snowfall. We had 23 inches of snow, and the liquid in that was about 2.3 inches of liquid, which gave us a 10 to 1 inch ratio, which is normal by East Coast standards, but here in the Rockies, we tend to have some pretty dry snows. And when you have that much liquid in the snow cover, it takes a lot longer to melt, especially when you're on a northern aspect. And by that I mean a north-facing slope, like we are where we live here on our property. So today's high temperature, 53 degrees, a little bit above normal for us for early April. The low this morning was, about 28 degrees when you round up. And as you can see, the high wind speed today was 31 miles per hour with some gusts up to 49 miles per hour. This is a windy location. Not uncommon to get wind gusts during the day, anywhere to 30, 50 miles per hour. And of course, we can get the Bora and Chinook winds where we can see winds sustained up to 70, 80, 90 miles per hour. We're starting to get out of the windy season here now in the foothills. That's more in the middle of the winter and later in fall, but we can still get some very windy days. So what's going on weather-wise right now? Well, let's take a look at the weather underground map around our area. I'm going to scroll back over to the Front Range here. And you can see Denver is down here, Lakewood, Arvada. Netherlands up here, and we are about 4.5, 5 miles east, northeast of Nederland, above Boulder Canyon. That's us right there, 44 degrees. We're pretty close to that point there. And you can see the Great Plains are out here. The Front Range foothills abruptly rise out of the Great Plains. We're at an altitude of about 8,200 feet here. Boulder is about 5,200 to 5,400 feet. And then the Continental Divide, back up over here, we have some peaks over 13,000 feet. So quite a marked rise in elevation from the plains up to the Continental Divide. And that has a big influence on our weather. We've seen it a few times this year where we've had some pretty significant upslope storms. Upslope storms are storms where the winds come in from the east. And as those winds get lifted up into the mountains because of the orographic lift, you get condensation and snow forms, precipitation forms in general. And in our case, this winter it was snow. And you can get some pretty heavy bands of snow setting up along the foothills. And we saw some pretty impressive snowfall rates the past few storms we've had where we were getting 2 to 3 inches an hour and sustained for several hours. And that's just one of the localized orographic effects that the mountains here can have on the weather. And of course, the other one we were just discussing are the winds. When the winds are coming from the west, we can get some really strong winds coming off the Continental Divide. But right now, weather is tranquil. On the plains, very mild. Temperatures upper 50s. Even down towards Denver. A few cooler spots here and there where we have some lower elevation pockets where cold air settles. Overall, though, very mild evening. Even up here in the foothills, generally 40s, low to mid 40s. Over in Winter Park, where they're a little bit more sheltered, temperatures a little bit cooler, 30 degrees, 29 degrees at Berthoud Pass, which is about 11,000 feet And why are we experiencing this warm weather? Well, let's take a look at the models, and we're going to take a look at the North American model, the NAM. And let's see how much the 0Z has come in here. We might have to wait a few minutes for the 0Z to come in. Let's see. Well, let's stick with 18Z for now. And looking at the mid-levels of the atmosphere, we'll see that we're in what we call a PNA pattern, a Pacific North America pattern. And right about now, which would be about 6Z on the midday NAM run, you can see there's a very large ridge over the western U.S. and a deep trough here digging into the central and eastern portions of the U.S. And it's been quite mild over the eastern U.S., but that has changed over the past few days. There's actually been some freeze warnings in the mid-Atlantic. Again, East Coast weather, they tend to panic over just about anything. We have snow on the ground. It's quite cold here in the mountains, but their growing season has started, and sub-freezing temperatures could be very damaging to some of the blossoms and flowers that are growing there at this point. And you can even see a few flakes of snow around some of the cities like DC and Philadelphia and New York City as we go over the next couple days. But back over in our neck of the woods, we're located right about there, Colorado. And we have this big ridge of warm air. And a ridge in the atmosphere is where the heights are higher. These lines you're looking at here are what we call heights. It's like looking at a hiking map, a topographic map, except instead of terrain, we're looking at air. And where the values are higher, like 582, that is where the air is warmer. Warmer air expands, so it actually occupies a deeper column in the atmosphere. Cold air, on the other hand, contracts, takes up less space, so the lower heights here reflect colder air. And so you can just picture where the air masses are here. We have a warm air mass here, and some cooler air masses up in this area. Not a polar vortex by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still unseasonably chilly in the northeast along the east coast, quite mild in the west. And this is an interesting feature right here. A lot of times the flow in the atmosphere becomes locked in very stable patterns. So we have the ridge and we have the trough. You can see the wind barbs here, so that the wind is basically flowing like this up and over the trough of the ridge and then down around the base of the trough. So these ridges and troughs define how the winds are flowing, and they also define how storms are going to track. What makes this a particularly stable pattern is this low right here, down here. So I can actually draw it. Yeah. So you have the ridge, you have the low, and this is a form of a Rex block. And it's very stable because the low wants to move this way. The cutoff low, the circular low in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, just by physics, atmospheric physics, it tends to want to not move to the east. It wants to move more to the west. Meanwhile, the ridge wants to progress this way. It's an open wave, and waves tend to progress in the atmosphere from west to east. However, they cancel each other out, and this becomes a very stable, nearly stationary pattern. So you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, well, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal means that the ridge stays here for a prolonged period of time, which results in warmer than normal temperatures of the western U.S., and the ridge is here, then the trough will generally stay over here with reinforcing impulses of cold air rotating around the base of it. And this is the PNA pattern. And it looks like it's going to persist for the next couple of days at least into the weekend. All right. Let's take a look at the atmosphere in a slightly different aspect. We'll go back to what you're more used to seeing on the TV weather stations, and that is the surface map. This is not quite as pretty as a surface map you would see on the weatherman's map on TV on the evening news. The lines here are basically what we call thickness lines, and they correspond to temperature. They're proportional temperature. The higher the value, the warmer the air, the lower the thickness value, generally the cooler the air in the column of the atmosphere. This gives you a quick idea where the cold air masses are. You can see there's some cold air over the Hudson Bay, and where the warm air is, surprise, surprise, over the western U.S. All right. And you can see where the highs and lows are as well. And of course, in the northern hemisphere, air flows counterclockwise around a low pressure system and clockwise around a high pressure system. So you see the pressure systems, you see the isobars. Those are lines of equal pressure. And you can begin to envision how air is flowing around these systems. Again, clockwise around the high, counterclockwise around the low. You get warm air advection coming up from the Gulf of Mexico into the eastern U.S. Meanwhile, for us, well, not as exciting here in the Rockies. On the backside of the low, you have some cold air advection into the plains, and we did see a cool down today. And there's still some shallow cool air out in the plains, but that's going to be moving out to our east. But generally just warm. And notice again the storm track over that ridge. The lows are tracking up way to our north and then down into the east to the base of that trough. That ridge acts like it protects us from storm systems. If you like sunny and warm and dry weather, which we're getting to April, we're going to be getting some, but it'd be nice to get a little bit more snow. I'm a snow lover. All right. So what is going to happen? And we'll stick with this map for now. We'll go forward in time a little bit. There's some green on there now. That's precipitation. That gives you an idea where precipitation will be falling. And let's go into 12Z Thursday. When I say Z, that's Zulu time. 12Z basically corresponds to about 6 a.m. in the morning Mountain Time. There you go. Not much going on in our neck of the woods in terms of weather. Pretty warm, relatively warm thickness values for this time of year. Storm system exiting through New England right now, reinforcing shadow cold air moving into the Appalachians. But not much going on for us. A little bit of precipitation into the Baja California area, New Mexico. And that's that cutoff low we were talking about. Generally in the atmosphere, ahead of troughs and lows, you get lift. You get large scale lift, which produces precipitation. You see it here. And you see it here with an associated surface weather system. And then, of course, on the east side of ridges, you tend to get descending air in the atmosphere, which tends to stabilize it. Not much precipitation for us right there. No moisture coming in from the Gulf of Mexico. In a nutshell, Thursday is looking like it's going to be a pretty quiet day over us in this area. We're going to skip ahead a little bit now to, let's go out to 36 hours. See what that looks like. There we go. And this will be almost Friday morning. Again, cold in the east. Warm in the west, no precipitation. Some moisture making it onshore into California and just southwest of the Four Corners region. That's in response to that low pressure area in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. Not affecting us, at least not at this time. We'll go out a little bit further this time. Let's go out to 60 hours. All right. Pretty much the same pattern. Again, when we get into these ridge over cutoff low patterns, what I called the Rex block, things don't move very fast. It's still pretty chilly in the east for this time of year, for sure. But you're looking at temperatures that looks really cold, but it's April, the sun is strong, and you're going to be looking at temperatures during the day in Washington in the 40s, getting back into around 30 at night. Suburbs getting into the upper 20s. That's pretty chilly considering everything's blossoming and blooming. But for us, oh, not much going on really here. Some of the moisture has just made it over the Four Corners region into western Colorado, and this is Saturday morning. But still, we're high and dry here, and I think it'll be difficult for this moisture to make it over the Rockies to get into our neck of the woods. And finally, let's just go out another 24 hours. This should take us to Sunday morning, if I'm doing my math right. Yeah, look at that, 6Z Sunday. That's a little past midnight Saturday night, getting into early Sunday morning. Not much going on, but this is interesting here. And we'll have to watch this. You know, we have a wave that's diving into us here. There's a trough. There's a cold front coming in there too, and I didn't really draw that in the right place. Let's try it again. It's tough in the Rockies to figure out where the fronts are. This is more of an occluded front here. And then you can see that the front itself is here. We don't talk too much about warm fronts in the Rockies, but you can get them out in the plains, and that's what that looks like. The important point is that it looks like we're going to be getting some cooler temperatures pushing in sometime on Sunday night into the northeast plains of Colorado, Nederland, Ord, Black Hawk, and the foothills. And it's going to be quite warm to start with, so any precipitation will definitely start as rain. I think freezing levels are going to be well above 10,000 feet, looking more like 12,000 feet to start with, but they'll drop pretty quick, and we will see some snow, I think, here in Nederland at 8,200 feet Sunday night, with snow levels getting down to maybe 6,000 feet or so by Monday morning. Doesn't look like a significant storm system, but something to keep an eye on as we get into the weekend. But overall, things are looking pretty good right now for the weekend. And this time around, we'll just go back and take a look at the weather underground forecast. And that looks kind of weird. Let me erase that. My internet connection is a little bit slow, especially in this room. All right, come on. Needless to say, we're looking at fairly tranquil conditions over the next few days. Here we go. And it's coming. It's coming. All right, there you are. Well, not too exciting looking. Tomorrow, continued warm. Friday, continued warm. Saturday, a few more clouds as we start seeing some of that moisture coming from the southwest, but continued mild. Sunday starting off mild, but temperatures I think will tank during the afternoon. We start seeing the chance of rain as the day progresses. Looks like it'll be warm enough to be rain. Probably turning to snow Sunday evening and continuing into the day on Monday. A couple inches right now. I think less than an inch is a little bit too low. I'm thinking more like maybe 2 to 4 inches total later Sunday afternoon into Monday morning. And then we start getting into a more active pattern early next week. Temperature's still fairly mild though. So it looks like a lot of the precipitation that's going to fall predominantly will be rain except Sunday night and Monday, which is a bummer, but it is April. And any moisture is good moisture. But the start to the weekend will be really nice. So get out there and enjoy it. And if you're lucky enough to have Friday off, it should be a super day. Still good to hit the slopes. Snow is pretty good, believe it or not, on a lot of the ski areas. They've had a lot of snow in March, a lot of water in it. Skiing's still good. Winter Park is staying open until early May. They extended their season on the Mary Jane side of the mountain. And if you're like us, we've been running down the plains and starting to bike now. So, and one day here in Colorado, you can go skiing in the morning, you can go biking in the afternoon. You really can't beat it. But no big storms on the horizon right now. Anyway, thank you for joining me tonight. And I appreciate you spending a little bit of time this evening with me. And I'll be posting an update soon. Good night.